Let's switch gears to basketball. 40 years ago this week, or 40 years ago this month, Pete Maravich came to town. Barry, you're going to write about him in Friday's paper, also be on News OK. It was a 3 days of basketball, the likes of which we never saw before, or maybe have never seen since. Tell us about that.
Well, it's been 40 years, and almost 40 years since Pete Maravich played his last college game anywhere. And I'm not sure that people appreciate what a mythical figure he was. This is a guy that averaged 43, 44, and 45 points a game in his 3 years of college. No shot clock, no three-point line. He came here, and the three games they played were 84-78, 105-90, and 94-91. When you hear people talk about how great college basketball is these days, tell them to go back and look at the way we used to play and the kind of fun it used to be and the entertainment it provided. Pete Maravich was at the epicenter of that. He played when you couldn't make the NCAA tournament unless you won your own conference, so he never played in the NCAA tournament. He was in a league with Kentucky, for crying out loud. So LSU was hardly ever on TV, and yet, because of this amazing style that he sort of invented, scoring from all over the floor, dribbling behind his back, throwing passes. He was sort of a half Ernie D. Gregorio, half downtown Freddie Brown. I mean, there's never been a player like him. And he came to Oklahoma City in the winter of December of 1968, and the whole city became a buzz at a chance to see that the circus had come to town out at the fairgrounds for the all-college tournament. And I talked to somebody yesterday for the story, and they said you had high expectations, and when you went and saw him, what he produced so far surpassed the expectations, you just couldn't believe it. Couldn't get your arms around how different this guy was. He had long hair and floppy socks. He was sort of the anti-hero, which fit in well with the younger crowd of 1968. And he just played a style of basketball that no one had ever seen before. And Pete Maravich was truly a basketball pioneer. And the truth is, no one ever really replicated it.
Is there a chance that the reason no one ever approached Pistol Pete is because everyone tried to approach Pistol Pete? Lots of people have tried to play like that.
Well, you need some help if you're going to do that. First of all, your dad needs to be the coach.
We've seen that.
You think Henry Iba's going to let Pete Maravich throw behind the back passes and dribble through his legs and shoot 40-something times a game? No. So his dad, Press Maravich, was the coach, and that helped. And coaches, back then and now, college basketball in particular, are so control-oriented. They want to, college basketball. If you let college basketball coaches in charge, we'd play football and we'd huddle after every play, and they could tell you what to do. The Maraviches didn't do that. They'd throw, and you know what? They had other guys in one of the games here in Oklahoma City. Pete Maravich had two guys play guard with him. They had a three-guard lineup. The other two guards, one scored 24, one scored 25. Pete wasn't just shooting. He was distributing the ball. You know what? He was if you're a high school basketball fan in Oklahoma, he was a flashy Keaton Page playing on the college level is what he was. I mean, if you were out at the fairgrounds last year watching Pawnee, you were just amazed at Keaton Page, and Rodney Clark too, but Keaton Page because of the way he passed and the way he shot.
Who also had his dad coaching.
Also had his dad coaching. So, that's a little bit only with more flash and more flair and on a bigger stage. So it was an amazing 3 days. He had 138 points. LSU won the all-college championship. It was not a small-time tournament. Bob Lanier was here with St. Bonaventure. OCU was good, had one of its great sharpshooters, Rich Travis. Duquesne was the team LSU beat in the finals, ranked 15th in the country. It's a fantastic week of basketball, and the people who saw it will never forget it.
One more question about that, Jenny. The closest we have in the world of basketball, we're told, is Ricky Rubio, the great Spanish player who may someday be tantalizing Oklahoma City basketball fans by being maybe a draft choice or at least a prospect. And then in the college game, we really don't have anything approaching it, except young Mr. Curry from Davidson.
Well, as Barry was talking, he came up in my mind because, if Stephen Curry would have been around 30, 40 years ago, he'd have been sort of that myth, that legend, maybe even 20 years ago. I don't know. But today, you get to see him. You get to watch him play OU, and you get to watch him play these other teams, which is a whole different ballgame that I wonder if Pete Maravich was playing today, how we'd see him.
Pick him apart. One thing, his style would be picked apart, and as you said, he'd be coached down. You know,
he wouldn't. The lack of television has increased. It increases the myth, lessens the hype, but increases the myth. Yeah. And you know what? I was actually talking to Skip Bayless yesterday. Skip was a high school junior at Northwest Classen in December '68. He went to all 3 games at the Big House, saw that entire all college. He said he had a conversation with Michael Wilbon last week in which Michael Wilbon brought up Stephon Curry and said, hey, he's got a little bit of Pete Maravich. And Skip said, I just shook my head and said, listen, I love Stephon Curry. He's not Pete Maravich. So I think the truth of Pete Maravich is there was never one before him and there's never been one like him since.